All right, welcome to The Explainer. When we think about the AI revolution, we usually think digital, right? Stuff happening up in the cloud. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain on its huge physical secret, a massive boom for one of the most old school industries you can imagine, the companies that literally keep our lights on.
So everyone's talking about the software, the genius code, the crazy powerful microchips that make AI work. But what if I told you there's this massive hidden cost, a ravenous appetite for one single resource? And nope, it's not code and it's not silicon.
It's electricity, pure and simple. And get this number, 17%. That's the year-over-year jump in electricity demand just from data centers for one big U.S. utility company, Southern Company. And this is for the second year in a row. This isn't just a small ripple, folks. It's a full-on tidal wave of new demand. Okay, so let's really get into this whole energy appetite thing. That 17% number, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It tells a much bigger story about what it actually takes to power our increasingly digital world. This is where the cloud gets very, very real. You know, the core idea is actually super simple when you think about it. Every time you ask an AI a question, every time you use a cloud service, heck, every app on your phone, it's all running inside a real physical building, just packed with servers. And those data centers, they are unbelievably thirsty for power, not just to run the computers, but to keep the whole operation from overheating. So for an industry like electric utilities, which, let's be honest, has seen pretty flat growth for the better part of a decade, this surge is, well, it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity. And that brings us right to our case study for today, an energy company that's putting itself right in the path of this tech tsunami. All right, so let's talk about Southern Company's big power play. They are right at the center of this whole story, and they're a fantastic example of how this digital boom is completely shaking up these old school industries. So here they are, Southern Company. Now, you might just see a regular old utility company, but here's the thing. Their territory down in the Southeast is turning into a massive hotspot for new data center construction. They're not just selling power anymore, they're literally becoming a key piece of the entire AI economy. And you don't have to take my word for it. Listen to their CEO, Chris Womack. He's not talking about small tweaks here and there. He's basically shouting from the rooftops that their business is undergoing this massive fundamental shift, and it's all being driven by this new demand. So you might be asking, what's their secret sauce? Why them? Well, they control the whole shebang, from the power plant all the way to the plug. This makes them the perfect one-stop shop for these new giant customers, the tech companies they call hyperscalers. We're talking about the big names building these city-sized data centers. And what do they need? Huge, reliable amounts of power, and they needed it yesterday. So how exactly are they planning to do all this? Well, they're not just talking a big game. They are putting some absolutely colossal numbers behind this strategy. $81 billion. That's their 5-year plan for capital investment. And just to put that into perspective for you, that's almost a 30% jump from what they were planning just a single year ago. That's how fast this whole thing is moving. So what's behind that $81 billion price tag? Well, it's a pipeline of potential new customers that could add up to 75 gigawatts of demand. I mean, that is an insane number. It's enough electricity to power tens of millions of homes. And listen, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky wish list. We're talking about 26 deals already signed, sealed, and delivered. That represents 10 gigawatts of new, fully locked-in service agreements. These are real projects, and a lot of them are already being built as we speak. And this is the really clever part. Look at how they're structuring these deals. These are not your flimsy handshake agreements. We're talking ironclad, long-term contracts, 15 years minimum. They have minimum payment guarantees that cover 100% of their costs, and massive termination fees if a customer tries to back out. Basically, they've figured out how to de-risk this huge construction project, not just for the company, but for all their existing customers too. Okay, so a big, ambitious plan is great, but it has to be built on something solid, right? So let's take a quick look at their recent numbers, their Q4 2025 results, to see how they're actually performing right now. For that specific quarter, yeah, it was a bit of a mixed bag. They came in just a tiny bit shy on earnings per share. But, and this is the important part, they blew past expectations on revenue. And that revenue beat, it really points to the strong sales growth that's already starting to kick in. But if you zoom out and look at the whole year, the picture gets a lot clearer. They hit the absolute top of their guidance range,
which shows they're consistently delivering on their promises. Having that kind of track record really adds a lot of credibility when you're talking about such an ambitious future. Okay, this chart really puts the scale of this change into perspective. Look at this. The growth in their retail sales in 2025 alone was more than double the growth of the entire last decade combined. And they think that's just the beginning. They're projecting that rate to jump to around 10% every single year through 2030. I mean, that's not just growth. That's a complete paradigm shift for a company like this. Now look, it's not all sunshine and roses. Of course not. A growth story this big doesn't happen without hitting some serious challenges and risks along the way. And this really breaks down that tension, that balancing act they have to manage. On one side, you've got this incredible, unprecedented demand from data centers. But on the other side, you have some very real headwinds. Costs are going up, they need to finance this enormous capital plan, and let's face it, there's a growing amount of political and regulatory noise surrounding these massive data centers. So when you boil it all down, Southern Company's story, it's really a microcosm of a much, much bigger challenge. The AI revolution is here, and it runs on power. So the question isn't just whether one company can build out the infrastructure fast enough. The real question is, for all of us, are we truly prepared to build and to pay for the massive energy grid that this new AI world actually needs?